If you're new to teaching AS level psychology 9990 for the Cambridge syllabus, get ready because this is the video you've been waiting for. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is how I broke the year up into quarters. Now, the first quarter is very, very important because this is going to set the tone for the entire year. Now, if you're part of my Patreon classroom, you'll notice I have a midterm or a baseline quiz that is 60 questions. It's multiple choice. It grades itself in the Socrative Teacher app. So if you are not part of Socrative yet, please get that because a lot of my documents and quizzes that I have for you here, they are available for you to copy and paste right into Socrative. And then you can give those live to your students every single day, which is what I did. And I'll tell you that at the end. Now, let's set up our year. What is our year going to look like? Now, there's approximately 44 days in a quarter, and we know that the fourth quarter is kind of going to be hindered a little bit because of the exams. So how are we going to allow our students to see these studies multiple times? And I've come up with just the thing for you. Children are scrambling to try to make study materials, index cards, anything and everything to pass this exam because let's face it, they're not going to start studying until like the last month maybe. You know that. So in the beginning of the semester, quarter one, this is what I did. I started with the syllabus, letting them know their expectations of what the syllabus inquires, what they're going to have to take for an exam at the end of the year. And then we started with ethics and research methods. We spent about 4 days on that topic. And then I left the very last 12 classes for each of the 12 studies. And what I did was I kind of created this trifold of seeing the studies 3 different times in the entire classroom year. And I found that this is so important because when a student is only exposed to the study one time, especially if it's in the beginning of the year, they tend to completely forget anything about that study. And teaching cognitive and biological studies first, those are the most difficult to understand. So we have to make a way for the children to see the studies multiple times. In the first quarter, I assigned a lot of work. I didn't do a lot of teaching of the studies, but we did a lot of creating study materials that are going to be used throughout the entire year for the students. Instead of waiting to the end of the year, we started with study materials. So this is an example of the index card that I created. As you see, it's backwards for you. But on the front of the index cards, I used very large index cards. You can see these are smaller. You got to get big index cards, okay? On the very front of the cards, I actually created the cards myself. And then I allowed my students to copy them from the board. I allowed them to copy them from the board because I want to make sure that their study materials and their information they're getting is correct, 100% correct. Yes, they have the books in front of them, but if they all looked similar, then it was a lot easier for everyone to be on the same page and know that all of them are on the same page. Okay, so on the front is all the procedures, independent variables, population, the results of the study, and then on the back, I did the evaluation of each study in grave form, okay? As you know, generalizability, reliability, application, validity, and ethics. So imagine this, it's the first quarter, students come into class, I hand them a large index card, and then I have my own index card projected on the board. I tell them once they finish this, they have to complete a study guide on the same exact study, whether they want to do it in class, use the rest of their class time to do it, which I suggested. If they don't have enough time, then that is homework. But that homework is not going to be collected until the very next time that we review Canley, which is actually going to be in the second quarter. So it's important for your students to be really organized. I would suggest hole punching these and hole punching or placing them in sleeves like this, those index cards and the study guides that you want your students to complete. Now, if you're saying, well, what study guides are you talking about, Mrs. Mikey? If you are part of my Patreon classroom, you have access to 12 blank study guides that are designed specifically for all 12 of the studies. So what you're doing is you're giving these study guides to your students on day one, and they can either work on them then, or they can work on them a couple days before they're due in the second or third quarter. Welcome to quarter two. Now that you've had your students prepare all their study materials for the end of the year, and even start looking into some of the studies by doing those outlines or study guides that you assigned in the first quarter, the second quarter is going to look a little bit different. I would suggest starting by reviewing some research methods, reviewing some ethics, and then you're going to see that the second quarter has enough time for you to go over each study in 2 days. So you can spend 2 days on Canley, then you're gonna stop, you're gonna have 2 days on Schachter and Singer, 2 days on Baron Cohen, 2 days on Laney, 2 days on Andrade. You're going to basically cover cognitive approach and the biological approach in quarter 2. Now, you're not gonna go cognitive and biological all at one time. What I would suggest you do is cover the 3 studies in cognitive and then give a cognitive exam. Luckily for you, if you're part of my Patreon, I have a cognitive exam that I created myself ready for you to give your students. When you're entering the second quarter, you're going to, let's say on day 1, you are going to talk about Canley. You're going to put a PowerPoint up on the board. You might show a video of Canley. You might just give them a little background information of Canley. And then you're going to remind them that their study guide and their index card is due the following day, where you talk about Canley for the second time. I mean, at this point, you're basically just holding kids accountable for creating their study materials for the end of the year. I mean, they're in your class because they want to pass this. They have to pass this. They want to pass this. Okay, it's not just a normal core class. So they're going to need to do this work in order to be prepared and successful at the end. Now we're in quarter 2. We have done all the cognitive studies. We have given a cognitive approach exam. We have done all the biological studies and we have given a biological exam. Now is time for us to give our midterm. What are you going to do? As a teacher, the hardest thing for me was giving the exam and then having them all corrected by the time that my principal needed me to have my grades in. So what I did was I created a multiple choice exam that covers ethics, research methods, cognitive and biological approaches in a multiple choice format that grades it for you right there on the spot. You will have the grade by the time the student gets up and leaves the classroom. This is also available on Patreon. I also mentioned at the beginning of the video that this can be used as a baseline. What I personally did was I gave my students this exam in the beginning of the year, and then I gave it to them during their midterm. And during their midterm, I was able to see if they increased their scores or if their scores got lower in certain areas. Basically, what areas do I need to focus more on for them? Quarter 3 is going to look very similar to quarter 2, except in quarter 3, we are studying learning and the social studies. And I want you to use the same exact format. I want you to do the 3 learning studies and then give them a learning exam. I want you to do the 3 social studies and then give them a social exam. I have all of those for you. You don't even have to worry. They're in Patreon right now. Now, guess what, guys? It's quarter 4, and you've covered all of the studies 2 times. So now quarter 4 is just complete and utter review using all of the materials that your students created in the beginning of the year. Each one of them has a flashcard. Each one of them has a packet, a study guide packet that has correct answers in it. With whether you decide to go over the study guide during the 3rd quarter, maybe you decide to go over it as a class with everyone, however you handle that, it can be different for anyone. I particularly graded in the 4th quarter. We went over these in the 4th quarter because this was the 3rd time for my students to see each one of the studies. As the 4th quarter begins, is creating some type of poll for your students, for your class, of which studies that they remember the most. It's easier than saying the ones that they don't know. So tell me, which ones do they remember the most? Ask them to create a poll on Kahoots, create a poll somewhere in Google Docs or Forms, and ask your students which studies they know. Because in the 4th quarter, you're going to focus on all of the studies that they don't know. What's the point of studying material that you already know? It's a lot of students make that mistake, is they go for the material that they know first because it's comfortable. And they just kind of try to forget about the stuff that is hard and difficult, and that doesn't work. So again, this fourth quarter is dedicated to review. It's dedicated to games with my index cards. It's dedicated to competition. I've created Jeopardy. Create games with the answers, or have your students create a game. That is what I also did for the fourth quarter. I had my students create games. Board games specifically. Now, by creating these board games, I made them do it in a non-digital form. And the reason for it was because I didn't want a lot of copying and pasting, and a lot of coding of very easy ways of creating games. I wanted kids to be hands-on. Here's an example, some cards that students created for their board games. And the questions are such as define nature versus nurture, and then the answer is available. So I did make a lot of rules as far as the answers have to be correct. If someone plays your game and finds an incorrect answer during grading day, then that docks points. This video is not exactly for an in-depth look at every day in the classroom. That is for another video. But as far as your year is concerned, if you are not at the beginning of your year right now and you're watching this video, just kind of check and see where you are. Are you in quarter 3? How many studies have you actually gone over so far? Are you in quarter 2? How many studies have you actually gone over so far? Now, the one thing that I will go over in another video that you're probably asking is, how do we give exams that are similar format to the hour-and-a-half exam, and how do we grade it in a timely manner? That is for another video, my friend, but I will tell you exactly what I did to combat that struggle that I found so deeply in my first year of teaching. I'm telling you, it would take me about 6 weeks to grade 80 to 100 papers that were written, and it took them an hour to do. I had to find a better way, and there is a better way. And that video will be out shortly. But for now, I hope that you were able to understand and really break down what an entire year of teaching AS psychology should look like, or could look like for you. And if you are in my Patreon, then you will get all of the documents. You will get my daily agenda. The dates might be off because it was from 2018, but you'll get my daily agenda, everything that I did for the entire year. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, click that little notification bell so that you can get notifications when new videos come out for you, whether it is a teaching video or it is on the AS A-level subject. And if you have any questions about my Patreon classroom, you can always click the link below or send me an email at apsychology9990@gmail.com. And just for the disclaimer, I do not work for Cambridge. I was Cambridge trained for the 9990 syllabus in 2017. And I look forward to seeing you guys in Patreon.